Good morning, we're on the air. It's the 6th Osage Nation Congress. We are in our Hunkah Session. Today is March 25th, 2019. Time is 10:04 a.m. Day one. Briefly, we do have some new audio equipment. You'll see in front of you, if it's on green, that means you're on. If you want to mute it, just push the button and it turns red. If you want to whisper, go a little incognito action. You have to hold it down, and then I guess you let off of it and it turns back green. First item on the agenda is prayer. I've asked Congresswoman Whitehorn to say a prayer for us this morning.
Thank you, Speaker Walker. Father God, we just come to you today just thankful that we can be here with thankful hearts. We thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed on each and every one here and on the Osage people, Lord, and the people in our area and our region. We just thank you for watching out after us and being a good and mighty God. I just come to you right now and just ask you that you be with some of our families that have suffered loss. I ask that you be with the Inlow family. I ask that you be with the Bellew-Gilly family right now. There's some of our people that are down in Hominy, and we just ask that you comfort them and be with them as only you can. Lord, I just ask blessings and a healing blessing on our colleague, John Maker. He's recovering right now, and we just ask for a speedy recovery. We ask that you give him the right perspective, and we ask that you be with all of the people that have to do with his recovery, the doctors, the nurses, and his providers, Lord. Would you be with my colleague, Congressman Mason, as he's recovering from a hard time and a loss. I just ask that you be with him and that you just strengthen his heart and comfort him and be with him also, Lord. Right now, I ask that you be with us today as we do our business. Throughout this session, I ask your blessings. Our hearts are focused on the desire to do the best thing for our people, to make good decisions, to have good dialogue, to open our minds and to consider the choices that are placed before us, that we can continue on our Osage Nation in strength for our children and our grandchildren and the rest of the children to come. Lord, I just ask that you bring peace around our table, peace between the branches as we consider the business before us. I just want to thank you again, and I just want to praise you for looking out after us and being with us and watching the Osage people as we have made our journey to where we sit here today, Lord. I thank you. Let us carry on in a strong way. All these things I ask in the mighty name of Jesus.
Congresswoman, next on the agenda is roll call.
Present.
Congresswoman Edwards.
Present.
Congresswoman Goodfox.
Present.
Congresswoman Lemon.
Present.
Congressman Maker. Congressman Mason.
Present.
Congressman Potts.
Present.
Congresswoman Pratt.
That's you.
Congresswoman Stable.
Present.
Congressman Tillman.
Here.
Congresswoman Whitehorn.
Here.
Speaker Walker.
Here.
Assistant Chief Whitehorn.
Present.
We have a quorum. Congressman Maker did notify me yesterday that he wasn't going to be with us today while he's in recovery. He's hopeful that he may be able to join us at some point, but he is listening. So, next on the agenda is the executive message by Principal Chief Standing Bearer. Chief.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, Assistant Chief Redcorn, members of the Osage Congress, and the Osage people. I've been allowed to give my State of the Nation as the executive message this morning, and I'd like to do that at this time. Our Osage Nation is growing at a remarkable rate. Our Osage membership now stands at 21,685. A 21% growth rate in the past 5 years. More people are enrolling, more services are being delivered. Our communities are vibrant with the sound of our music and traditions, and the use of our language is growing stronger. we are dedicating our resources to the survival and strengthening of everything Osage. With the support of this Congress, our programs for Osage Language, Culture, Immersion School, and Wajaje Early Learning Academy provide an Osage environment for our future. The task we are engaged in requires great effort and full support from all quarters, with strong collaboration with each other. This is sustained effort which cannot pause. Our mission is being carried out with greater efficiency than ever. This is evident by the number of employees at Osage Nation remaining at about the same level during the past 5 years. This workforce is doing more work for more Osages and their families, and I congratulate each of them for their dedication to our Osage Nation. The growth in our membership has greatly increased the funding needs for our health benefit fund. This fund, which provides for the health benefit card, the Medicare Plan F supplement program, and the Medicare Part D program, has needed very large increases every year. Other programs have seen increases of funding needs, but none can match the high demand of the health benefit fund. 5 years ago, in fiscal year 2014, the Osage Nation committed and spent a total of $4,745,000 for the health benefit fund. In 2018, the amount increased to $8,994,000, and this year, $9,750,000 was appropriated for the fund. The amount needed for this fund has more than doubled since 2014. This need will increase during 2018 as over 1,400 Osages enrolled and received the health benefit card for the first time, and over 100 Osages signed up for the Plan F program. The executive has reported to the Attorney General some suspected abuses of the health benefit card, where some people may have used the card for items not health related. These cases are being investigated, and there already is discussion with the Congress Health Committee on this subject. Our higher education scholarship program is fully funded and will continue its financial support for all Osage people wherever they live or attend school. The latest report from Scholarship America says that the 2018 Osage Nation Higher Education Scholarship Program had 1,434 annual qualifying applications submitted. The Wajaje Health Clinic is seeing more patients than ever. In 2015, there were 32,059 patient visits, and in 2018, this increased to 48,501 patient visits. Each year, we have limited resources to fund all the programs important to our people. This causes us to prioritize our request for funding for our many programs. This year, we are seeking an increase in funding of our Deposca Onkotapi, the Wajaje Early Learning Center, and the Language Department. We appreciate the support of this Congress for funding these programs. More and more, our Osage people gather in traditional events, and perhaps the most powerful of all is hearing our children speak our language. This is only possible with the unswerving support of this Osage Nation government for every expression of being Osage. This expression is shown from building new dance grounds and community facilities, to language and culture classes, to new apps on mobile devices, to promotion of Osage art, education, food, dance, and music. Our Osage Museum and new visitor center are strong, and we will keep supporting what they do. The Veterans Memorial is seeing its first spring and summer. We expect many Osages to come and see the names of their loved ones honored on the granite walls of the Veterans Memorial. Our Osage casinos have just finished the first phase of the new Tulsa Casino, Hotel, and Event Center. Last week's Sovereignty Day celebration was held in the Event Center and enjoyed by all who were there. Our Osage Nation Gaming Board, CEO, and casino staff have done a truly spectacular job of maintaining the quality of all of our gaming facilities throughout the Osage Nation while building our new beautiful Tulsa Casino, Hotel, and Event Center. During the past year in Tulsa, we went from no hotel rooms to now having 141 hotel rooms, from 10 table games to 16, and from 989 gaming machines to now having 1,637 on the Tulsa Casino gaming floor. Our people are doing a fantastic job. We can see many more possibilities for new realities coming from recognizing the needs of our people, the resources we have available, and using our knowledge and experience to achieve attainable goals is something we possess. We believe these future projects include more housing for the elderly, new health clinic, new buildings for our school, more development for our communities, working with local governments and companies to build a broadband network and a strong veterans program. We know how to determine which projects may be out of our reach and which projects are possible within the next 5 years or less. We have a team working on taking Skyway 36 from a concept to a professionally developed plan, to real projects involving parts of the aerospace industry to be located on our Osage lands in Tulsa. Burr Creek Farms continues to provide produce for our programs as the team there carefully builds the foundations for our food sovereignty. Our case supporting Osage water rights is getting stronger every day. We have assembled the best water rights team in Oklahoma and perhaps in the nation. We have received expert advice from experienced legal minds who understand Osage legal history is unique, and the use and ownership of water rights here belongs to the Osage Nation and its people first. We understand other people have come into our territory and acquired some rights to use our water. How we sort out the conflicting issues is what we are working on now. There are parts of our Osage Nation government which operate independently from the Congress and the chief. Our Osage headright owners have just experienced one of the lowest payments in years. Recently, I have been invited by the Minerals Council to see how the executive can assist in working through oppressive federal regulations and rules which are holding back oil and gas production. These meetings have shown great promise. As for our LLCs, Osage Nation Environmental, Blue Stem Ranch, Osage LLC, and its subsidiaries are still active, and I look forward to them making reports to the Congress this session so we may assess their progress. As we all know, our budget process at the Osage Nation has changed from year to year. While it is better now than it's been in the past, there are logical steps to follow to finally install a process that we all understand and we all agree on. In order to do that, we first need to speak in the same language. I have asked the Assistant Chief and the Chief of Staff to work with the Treasurer on the definitions we use in law and in practice to make sure they match. If we aren't speaking the same language and using the same terms, we will experience more confusion than progress. I believe we need to establish a method agreeable to both the Congress and the executive on how to determine projected revenue and place that process in law. Every year, we seem to spend half the budget session trying to determine the amount of money available for budgeting. Finally, when both of these issues are resolved, we can then turn our attention to the process of budgeting. Arguments over the form of information, who has the correct numbers, what the definitions mean, and how we set projected revenue all cloud the issues in our decision-making in the budget process. My administration believes that a unified, rational approach with definitions and processes recognizable to national accounting and auditing standards will provide real transparency and accountability. Our work is showing positive results. For example, last Saturday at the Sovereignty Day dance, some Osage teenagers expressed to me how much they liked the new event center. When I told them the event center was owned by them and every Osage, their faces beamed with pride. It is an honor to work with you, the members of this Congress, and all the Osage Nation as we move forward to our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I have a copy of the State of the Nation address, and I've given that to the clerk, and she will distribute that to the members of Congress by email. It will also be attached to the journal. Next is our legislative message by the Speaker. Chief, good morning. Good morning, Congress. Assistant Chief, sure he's looking forward to spending the next month with us. Good morning, those in attendance, and all of those listening. I'm going to hit on what the Chief basically ended his State of the Nation with, and that's our projected revenue and budgeting law. It is my hope that that is the priority, starting with this session and going forward. We have a couple appropriation bills that are filed. I think we need to figure out how much projected revenue, exactly where we stand before we move forward on any appropriation bills. Hit on the treasurer, working with the treasurer. We've had a couple good meetings with the treasurer recently. I know there's been a lot of dialogue between our appropriations chair, Congresswoman Whitehorn, and our new treasurer, appointee treasurer. He's one of, I think, 15 appointees that we need to consider this session, including our own appointee to the editorial board. So we need to have some discussion on that and figure out how we're going to move forward with that appointee. As I stated, I just feel like the main priority this session needs to be our budget law. We have some unconstitutional language that has been on the books for a while. I think it's time that this Congress take that bull by the horns and fix it. We have a couple merit bills that are filed. I feel like that's something else we need to consider. What I would consider to be our second most pressing issue this session. And I urge the committee chairs and those who are doing our homework and considering amendments to legislation that we take a hard look at that. It affects all of our employees. There are a couple competitive bidding amendments that are filed. I think it's important that if we're going to go forward with that it needs to be done as soon as possible. I know our Gaming Enterprise Board, let's try to get out there and get it done as soon as possible. Just a couple other pieces of legislation. Well, I say a couple other. There's, I think, about 35 that are filed, either filed during this session or are on the books. So we've got plenty of committee work to do. I'm sure there'll be another 10 or 20 or so filed over the next week or two. So that's kind of how I expect the committee chairs to handle their legislative workloads, committees, think it's time to go to work. Thank you. Next is bills and resolutions on first reading. Congressman Tillman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Chief, Assistant Chief, members of Congress, and all that are gathered here today. I'm reading in ONCA 19-06, an act to create the Osage Nation Tax Advisory Board to advise the executive and legislative branches on taxation and to establish an alternate effective date.
Congressman. Congresswoman Edwards.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. ONCA 1907 is an act to amend 19 ONC 3, Section 101 at SEC, and include new sections of law to clarify the laws intended to satisfy the Osage constitutional mandates for the Congress to establish a merit principle system of employment, to authorize the Department of Human Resources of the Osage Nation to implement the system, to include a grievance procedure and exhaustion requirement prior to seeking review in the trial court.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I'm going to go back just one to Congressman Tillman's bill. ONCA 1906 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee. ONCA 1907 is also assigned to the Government Operations Committee. Congressman Tillman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reading in ONCA 19-08, an act to amend the Competitive Bidding Act at 15 ONC Section 2-403A by amending the definition of governmental agency and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you, Congressman. ONCA 1908 is assigned to the Commerce, Gaming, and Land Committee. Congresswoman Stabler.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to read in ONCA 1909, an act to appropriate $523,659 to the Counseling Center for the Medication-Assisted Treatment Program and to establish an alternate effective date.
Congresswoman, ONCA 1909 is assigned to the Health and Social Services Committee. Congresswoman Edwards.
ONCA 1910 is an act to establish family medical leave in law for Osage Nation full-time employees and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you. ONCA 1910 is assigned to the Health and Social Services Committee.
ONCA 1911 is an act to amend 19 ONC Section 3106 of the Osage Nation Workforce Pay for Performance Act to authorize base pay adjustments and merit recognition and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you. ONCA 1911 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee.
ONCA 1912 is an act to establish a fund for home loan and down payment assistance for first-time home buyers to all members of the Osage Nation and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you. ONCA 1912 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee. Congresswoman Goodfox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of Congress, and those listening. I'm reading in ONCA 1913, an act to grant limited authority for the Principal Chief of the Osage Nation to waive sovereign immunity for specific purposes and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you. ONCA 1913 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee. Congressman Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reading in ONCA 1914, an act to amend the Osage Nation Membership Act, 21 ONC Section 1102, to make the number of days for temporary membership consistent and to establish an alternate effective date.
ONCA 1914 is assigned to the Membership Committee. Congressman Potts, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. ONCA 1915, an act to authorize the Osage News to host and conduct fair and unbiased debates leading up to Osage Nation elections and to establish an alternate effective date.
ONCA 1915 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee.
ONCA 1916 as an act to insert a new section at 15 ONC Section 5107 to require the principal chief to notify the Osage Nation Congress of a board member or commission member resignation within 48 hours and to establish an alternate effective date.
ONCA 1916 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee.
Reading in ONCA 1917, an act to establish a revolving fund for the Pawhuska Village to authorize limited expenditures out of the fund and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you. ONCA 1917 is assigned to the Culture Committee.
Reading in ONCA 1918, an act to establish a revolving fund for the Hominy Village to authorize limited expenditures out of the fund and to establish an alternate effective date.
ONCA 1918 is also assigned to the Culture Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In ONCA 1919, an act to establish a revolving fund for the Gray Horse Village to authorize limited expenditures out of the fund and to establish an alternate effective date.
ONCA 1919 is assigned to the Culture Committee. Congresswoman Pratt.
Morning, Speaker. Thank you. I'm reading in ONCA 1920, an act to amend the Competitive Bidding Act at 15 ONC Section 2403A by amending the definition of governmental agency and to establish an alternate effective date. Also, ONCA 1921, an act to appropriate $83,076 to the Capital Asset and Improvement Fund for wildland fire equipment purchases and to establish an alternate effective date.
Okay, thank you. ONCA 1920 is assigned to Commerce, Gaming, and Land. ONCA 1921 is assigned to the Government Operations Committee. Reading in ONCA 1922, an act to amend the summer health program and to establish an alternate effective date. ONCA 1922 is assigned to the Health and Social Services Committee. Congresswoman Whitehorn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to read in ONCA 1923 to amend the Treasury Law 15 ONC Sections 2-301 and Section 2-321, 301 and 321, to add definition and to establish the appointment of the Investment Committee and to establish an alternate effective date. I'd also like to read in ONCA 1924, an act to amend ONCA 1285, the Osage Nation Permanent Fund Act, to make investment language consistent with the Treasury Law and to establish an alternate effective date.
Thank you. ONCA 1923 and ONCA 1924 are both assigned to the Appropriations Committee. Congresswoman Good Fox.
Thank you. Reading in ONCR 19-02, a resolution to authorize a limited waiver of sovereign immunity from suit and a consent to jurisdiction to Expedia and its own affiliates.
Thank you, Congresswoman. ONCR 1902 is assigned to Commerce, Gaming, and Land Committee. Moving on to General Order Day 1, second reading. Congresswoman Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm reading in ONCA 1861, which is an act to amend and restate 15 ONC Section 5101 at set to establish an alternate effective date. This is the Boards Act of the nation. The bill provides some new definitions, adds some additional responsibilities to the board, and